Oh, we've been recording. Welcome back. Hey Meg, long time silent watcher here, and I've been re-binging your videos and getting re-inspired to get back into roasting. Something on my mind is about the time it takes to roast a bean in regards to the 40-40-20 rule. 40%, 40%, 20% in the overall total roasting ratio. Or any other percentage reference. They are all adding up to 100%, obviously, but each bean could take different lengths of time to roast, right? I'm trying my best to piece together how to approach a green blindly and roast with my senses before upgrading my roaster to see roast profiles on a screen. I'm doing my best to honor the cup and stick to a purist mindset. That great coffee has been roasted long before computers got involved. But like you and every other home roaster, I yearn for the how-to. I've tried to calculate my RoR with a stopwatch and my brain power, and I've made a knockoff graph to show me a curve, but obviously there's no trend I can see, so I can't change things preemptively, okay? So I'm trying to take it down a notch to just the senses and a timer. Do you have a way of knowing how long a bean will or should take to roast based on its green stats, okay, or the roast level you're going for without roast path or artisan? I've got to figure out the time it'll take to aim for the initial 40-40-20 starting standard. I'm hoping my ramble is making some sense. Thanks in advance for reading all this. Yeah, no problem. Okay, Ray. Oh, this is a tough one. Okay, I think if you don't have artisan, if you don't have roast path or a roasting software, and you're just going off the senses, meaning looking, smelling, not touching yet, it's hot, right? Smelling and sight, those are the main ones, right? Maybe at the end you can take some coffee, grind it in your mouth, and maybe even see like kind of gauge doneness. And you're not calculating RoR, so we don't have a signifier to let you know how fast you're going through the roast. So another thing too, with the whole purist thing, I know that I put that out there in the beginning, and I have talked about it where I've changed quite a bit in my philosophy of coffee. Coffee for me and coffee to roast for customers. And I think if you can separate, put on different hats when you're roasting coffee. So when I'm roasting for the customer, I want to roast the best coffee for the customer. I don't want to impose what I think is good. Unless they go, hey, roaster's choice, give me a light roast. Hey, roaster's choice, give me a medium roast. But for the most part, if I'm roasting for myself, that's definitely a total different vibe. Obviously, I'm going to be a lot more nitpicky and be a lot more critical about myself if I'm roasting for myself. But if I'm roasting for a customer or something else, yeah, different hats, right? So I'm not purist in every single time I put my hat on, for sure. So I just want to make that clear again. And I know that was misleading maybe in the beginning to be sort of purist. I think RoR has a very purist attitude about or roasters like RoR have that mentality of roasting purely off the numbers, and more power to them. There's nothing wrong with that if that gets them what they want, right? In my opinion, in my preference, in my style, I don't like to do that because I'm not a numbers person. That's why I have all the tools for roast path to calculate RoR for me. That's very difficult. I had to try to do that on my little Stodge training with Clatch, and you had to monitor RoR and plot it like you were doing, right? Do you have any way of knowing how long a bean will or should take to roast based on its green stats or the roast level you are going for? Okay, so if we're going based off 20-20 rule, 40-40-20 rule, which means 40% in the first phase, 40% the second phase, 20% in the last phase. Okay, so how you can kind of divide that up is you can work backwards. Say the total roast time. I think what most people will see too, what is also okay maybe is like a 5 plus 3 plus 3, like that. So like maybe this is like within 4 to 5 minutes, this is within 2 to 3 minutes, this is within 2 to 3 minutes. Okay? So this is within, these are ranges, these are not rules. So I think this is what helped me in the beginning too, even though I had, you know, roasting software and things like that, I was looking to hit ranges and guidelines and bumper rails. Okay, so don't be very purist about, this is my opinion, to not be very purist about the numbers and hitting certain like time ranges and things like that, but just be within target, you know. And whether you're on the bullseye each time, worry about that when you're trying to replicate a roast profile. Then you want to hit bullseyes more, or be closer to bullseyes. But as you're trying to just figure out how to roast and how the bean reacts with the heat in your roaster, I think it's better to just be within the guidelines, the bumpers, just be on target. And then you're not too maybe concerned about the weeds when you haven't figured out the macro picture of things. Okay, so just kind of start making this big mountain a molehill and start, you know, making the target easier to hit for you. Okay, respect to green choice. Basically, it's coming down to washed or natural. Let's zoom out, right? Is it washed or natural? Is it high elevation or low elevation? Okay, just start there. So for my washed and high elevation coffees, I'm going to try to go for something a higher charge, because I potentially need more energy in the roast to roast this coffee well. Okay. If it's a natural low elevation coffee, I don't need as much energy to roast it well, because it's natural, it's a low elevation. The bean itself, the green itself, will take on heat easier. Okay. Because it's not as dense, And these are general things. Again, there are always ways coffee can break rules, because coffee's fun like that. But those are general rules. Those are like standards, and you can deviate from the standard. You can break rules, and sometimes coffee does not follow rules sometimes. Okay, that's when you get into some different kinds of processes. But if you can establish in your mind some of those basic rules, then you can start to deviate from them a little bit more confidently and comfortably, because you just have that base of experience in your mind with a standard coffee. Now, as you're choosing green, just start with things that are easy, you know, coffees that are not difficult to roast. So obviously, as you're first learning to roast, you're probably learning, oh, I shouldn't, you know, maybe spend so much on a certain coffee, and just figure out how this particular coffee can work. Another consideration is how powerful your roaster is. You didn't mention what kind of roaster you have, but you talked about not having roast software hooked up to it. So maybe it's like, maybe if, for example, say it's an older hot top, not the 2K plus model that you could hook up to like an artisan and things like that. Okay, cool. So you have to consider the power, the capability of your machine. And again, don't compare it to somebody like myself who has more bells and whistles on my roaster, right? So make those considerations of the capabilities of your machine when you approach roasting. For example, a really specific one would be like, say I had a hot top, it's electrically powered. It uses like a hot coil to heat the beans, right? Convection and conduction in that kind of roaster, in that old school hot top. Still like a little baby drummer and everything, but because it's electrically powered, there's not like, right? So there's a delay. There's basically a delay in how much heat I can expect when I manipulate heat, okay? So things like that you need to consider. Another thing too is that if you can't calculate RoR, or you know, don't want to incorporate that into your roast process, just lean more into the other things that you can control. Again, we're looking for color, Smell, of course, that's going to be a really powerful one. If you have a really good nose, you should be able to tell. That can be your trigger to make preemptive decisions. So, ooh, it's smelling like cereal, or what's a green to yellow transition smell? It's smelling like baked bread. Maybe not baked bread exactly. Maybe it's still smelling kind of like yeast, or raw bread dough, or something like that, right? So maybe honing in on the smell, and that can help you make preemptive decisions when you're roasting, since you don't have the driver of RoR indicating for you how fast you're going. Okay, yes, still have the timer for sure. Take copious notes. If you don't have a roast software, then you've got to be your own, roast software. Your brain has to become your own roast software, which could be, this is fun. Like, I think just thinking about it out loud, just for fun, it might be fun to do that. And I always lament not keeping my hot top and selling it. I didn't really need to, actually. But I was thinking, oh, I'm going to be so big and beyond this little hot top. And now I really lament that I sold that thing. And now I'm like, I'm not going to buy one. But like, still, it would be fun to like go back and forth with y'all that have hot tops and run fun experiments and play with roast theory. Because this is all it is, okay? Is just theory. All right, all this stuff that I'm talking about, these numbers and everything. Again, I want to remind you to taste it in the cup. And when you make roasts that are not as, say you didn't like it, well, maybe dissect also why. And how, like, say this bean, maybe this roast was not so good, or maybe you didn't like it. Okay, let's analyze why we didn't like it. It's underdeveloped. Okay. Why is it underdeveloped? Let's go look back, at where it was undeveloped. The middle phase was less than 2 minutes. Okay. So is that the reason why? So we can start to make those, connect those points of data and start making correlations and things like that. Start making some really cool conclusions in your mind as a roaster, right? And the more you do that, then the more you'll be able to figure out problems for yourself too, and diagnose and treat the problem, whatever it is. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar too, but there is those, you can print them out like for free, roast profile graphs. Let me find one for you. Sample roasting log. Yeah, roasting log. So look, check it out. This is what I did. We plotted, what we were going to do, how we were going to mark it. And you can print these out. These are roasting log, right? Holy sh. Okay, starting weight, finish weight, percent loss, definitely, track that. We have target temps, final temp, yeah, for yourself, if you still wanted to dive in a little bit deeper, you can maybe do this one time. You don't have to plot it every time, but maybe do it one time, do all the math, plot it out for yourself. And then when you want to repeat that roast, then you have a much better guide map. Say it's not presented on a roast path or a roast software, but you have it here. And maybe you have in your notes, like, okay, so when we start to see green to yellow transition, okay, I first noted that at like 5:25. I feel that's kind of late. Okay, whatever. Let's make a note. Okay, we hear first crack at, or maybe it's 9:25. Okay, maybe it's 9:25. Okay, cool. And then so just go through the roast, see how the coffee roasts, and then from there you can start to make your adjustments. Things of mine and what I want you to look at as you're going to compare it, because since you don't have a roast software, what you're looking at is going to be your green to yellow transition time and temperature, your first crack time and temperature, and then your drop time and temperature. get a coffee that's kind of in the middle. Maybe don't get something that's super high elevation. Maybe don't get something that's super low elevation. Try to find something in the middle. And the middle is like 1,500 meters above sea level or something. Get something like easy, Mexico, Nicaragua, Colombia is always great. You can find something there. Maybe not so high elevation and dense if you have a machine that's maybe not as powerful. These are all assumptions, but try to get a green that your machine will not have a hard time roasting. I think I answered all these questions. Guardrails, target time and temp, you know. You can look at what I've done here. I'll link it all up. You can look at all of that, dissect it as much as you want. But just know that they are not set in stone. They are target ranges, okay? And the more that you can make the target easier for yourself to hit, then do that. But don't worry so much about hitting the bullseye until you're trying to replicate a profile that you love. All right? And then then you try to really be consistent and hit those bullseyes, okay? If that's what tastes good for you and works for you. Okay. I hope that helps, Ray, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Write me back if it helped. If it didn't, if I totally was off, I do want to help you. And if I misunderstood anything, just let me know. Okay?